Hi, everyone. My name is Lorette Brashear, and I'm here with the Chino Valley Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're here with the She Shed Report. So we're here talking to Lance Leighnor, and we're talking about everything that's going on. How's it going, Lance?
Hi, Lorette. It's going very well. We're at Leighnor Aircraft today, and we're going to go play with a flight simulator later.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about that. Tell us of what you guys do at Leighnor Aircraft.
Okay, what we do at Leighnor Aircraft, Lorette, is we basically rent airplanes and teach people how to fly. And we can teach anybody from raw beginners all the way up to commercial pilots getting ready to become airline pilots.
Wow. So, and so what do you guys do here? Do you guys do classes? What are some of the things you guys do?
We are what you call a Part 61 aircraft rental company, and what that means is Part 61 is a section of the Federal Aviation Regulations that governs pilot certification.
Okay.
That's basically the rules that pilots have to follow in order to get a pilot certificate, and it applies to everybody out there. The rules are the same for everybody, whether you're learning to fly here at Leighnor Aircraft or over at our friends across the field like North Air or Embry-Riddle. They've got to be held to the same test standards that we are. So everybody is.
Got it. So some of the things that you guys do here to get people prepared is you said you have a simulator. You offer different classes. So we're in one of your classrooms right now.
Yes, we're in our smaller classroom. We offer ground school classes. We also offer seminars on aviation topics from time to time. We also, last summer, we did movie night.
Oh, fun.
In the big classroom. And we'd put on either old airplane movies, or we had a period in the summer. And haven't done Top Gun yet. Although
done Top Gun. I mean, come on.
Although that new Top Gun movie rocks.
I haven't seen it yet. So, okay. So good to go.
Absolutely recommend the new Top Gun movie. If you're a fan of aviation movies, that's probably the most realistic flight scenarios you're ever going to see.
Wow. Okay.
It's that good. That's why the silly movie has made over $1 billion worldwide. So it's very good. We do, like I said, classes. We get people in the simulator, which ours is a full motion 3-axis simulator. So you're not going to be just sitting behind a computer screen and watching things on the screen. The simulator cabin will actually tilt sideways, up and down, and back and forth, just like a real airplane in flight. In fact, you're legally allowed to log a certain amount of time in that simulator toward flight training. So it's a lower cost way for pilots to learn to fly. They can learn some things in the simulator before you have to take it to a far more expensive airplane to do it. And that's some of the things that we do here.
What do you recommend for anybody that wants to get into flying? Like, what is their first steps? Because I often think of myself like, hey, I want to be a pilot one day, or it would be a really good career. So what are some of the first steps, and what do I need to do to accomplish this?
Okay, career-wise, right now, I grew up around aviation my entire adult life. Grew up outside of Wichita, Kansas, which is called the air capital of the world.
Wow.
Because of all the light plane manufacture, and even parts of Boeing are there. I've never seen anything like it right now. The demand for pilots is so high, and I think we've all seen the news of all the flight cancellations, the crazy schedule changes, and things like that. This is not, it's going to be fixed next year problem. This is a 10-year problem. We are that short. So if you're a young man or woman that is interested in getting into flying as a career, absolutely, the time is right now, because when demand is high, wages for entry pilots are up. Some of the requirements that used to be a little more stringent have been relaxed, and I'm not saying that in terms of safety requirements. It's for example, a lot of major airlines used to require a college degree for a pilot. Okay, I don't see how a college degree necessarily makes you a good or bad
Yeah.
pilot. It's the skills you learn in learning how to fly and getting your certifications and
Absolutely.
ratings. Yeah. So that's the key point. So you don't even have to go to a university anymore to be able to get into a commercial flying career now. It used to be just maybe a year ago that was a requirement. It's not any longer. So first steps. For anybody that's never been in a small airplane, we recommend either a discovery flight, or what we're going to be doing later today is kind of a simulated flight experience with Lorette. And you can
We'll
get
see if I crash and burn.
and you can purchase both of those on our website at leighnor.aircraft.com. And it's a low-cost way to see what flying in a small airplane is really like.
Wow.
Trust me, it is hugely different than getting in a multi-ton airliner and going from point A to point B.
Right.
A small airplane's only, 1,300 to 2,500 pounds. So it's a very light airplane. You're in full control of it, and that's what pilots train in. And that's the kind of aircraft we have here at Leighnor Aircraft to train people in, is everything from 2-seaters up to 4-seaters to do any kind of flight training.
Got it. And when they come here, do you have, with some of the questions that I have as basic questions, do I have to have my own airplane to train? Like, if I wanted to do this, or do I acquire my own airplane eventually? How does this work?
We rent airplanes,
Okay.
so you don't necessarily have to acquire it. And honestly, unless you're very, very dead serious about an aviation career, aircraft ownership entails a lot of things. And it's a lot more complicated than car ownership. And people sometimes go into that blindly and find out that this was a whole lot bigger task and a whole lot bigger expense than I thought it was. So that's why we rent airplanes. But trust me, there isn't a pilot alive that doesn't want his or her own airplane. And all of us have the dream someday of having their own airplane. I've got buyer's guides for airplanes from 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That's how long it typically takes. I won't say typically takes, but like I said, virtually every pilot wants their own airplane at some point.
Got it.
But we're like a Hertz or an Avis or Enterprise of airplanes. You can come in. If you've got a pilot's license, we can check you out. You can rent the airplane. You can fly up, go see Sedona, go cruise through the Grand Canyon, whatever you want to do, or take a trip to the coast if you want.
And then what you can do too is also that you guys also have classes, things like that for anybody that wants to get into this.
Yes, we're a little different than a classroom organized flight school. Our instructors all work one-on-one with an individual student. You've got very personalized attention. The curriculum is customized to that particular student's needs, as every student, I don't care what you're teaching, has different ways of learning, has things work better if you see pictures, or you listen to it, or you do it. And that's one of the things that is taught when you learn how to become a flight instructor, is recognize that people have different modes of learning and how to utilize all of those. So here, we're not in a big classroom and you're not with a different flight instructor every day. You're typically paired with a flight instructor of your choice. And a lot of times you're with that flight instructor from your very first flight through your check ride.
Wow. So it's somebody that you're with this whole entire time.
That's correct. And, and of course, life happens to everybody. Sometimes people move. Sometimes people get sick. But we have a very large number of instructors that work with us that are all very qualified in what they do and have a passion around teaching people how to fly. We've got several retired airline captains that they don't need to work. They've got a very good retirement. They've made very good money over their commercial careers. But yet we've got several retired airline captains that are in this building multiple times a week teaching the next generation of pilots how to fly.
That's fantastic.
And it's because they love it. It's just the passion that people have around aviation, and that's what's important to us here at Leighnor Aircraft.
That's great, Lance. And what are some of the other things that we can learn about your company? And what I actually want to ask from the start is, what made you start this company? I know that it's a family thing, and it's been around for a very long time.
I grew up around aviation. My dad and both his brothers were U.S. Army Air Corps in World War II, so I come from a veteran family. Many of my cousins were pilots in the various armed services. I had a cousin on my mother's side that flew with the Flying Tigers in China in World War II. I've had a brother-in-law that retired from U.S. Air Force. So there's a lot of military pilots and military people around me. And my dad was also very large in the experimental aircraft movement back in the Midwest in the after the war years, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And when we say experimental aircraft, that's people basically building their own airplane in the garage.
Wow.
And I was exposed to that as a young age, and I realized as I've gotten older, I did not have what you'd call a normal childhood.
Well, it seems normal to me.
Well, there's not a lot of people that grow up with your dad building an airplane in the family garage.
That's awesome.
And so I grew up with this. I mean, there were days my brother and I wondered if it came to a choice between the kids and the airplane, who'd win. And we were both convinced it was probably going to be the airplane. But I grew up with this. So I saw, and I was one of the two of us that got the bug. My younger brother could care less, never did.
Yeah.
But from the time I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, it was like, man, I just love airplanes. I want to be up in the sky. Part of it is, we took a family trip when I was young, and my parents have pictures of me sitting in the front seat of an old Cessna 210 flying to Liberal, and I'm sitting there in the right seat, flying the airplane, and I was probably 5 years old at the time.
Wow.
I mean, I wasn't doing very much flying, and of course, your feet can't reach the pedals.
Yeah, I was probably.
But I was ecstatic to do that, and it just from that time on, it's been a passion of mine.
You can hear it in your voice, and you can definitely see it in your face. It's a very big passion. Even reading your website and going through your stuff, you can tell the passion's there.
And that's the important thing. And to me, it's honestly something I think we've lost in this highly commercialized flight training environment that we have now. I mean, there are some schools, particularly down in the valley, that the kindest thing you can call them is pilot mills. And you are basically there 8 to 5 being either lectured or flying, and it is at an extremely fast, almost military boot camp type of way. And it's not fun. And there needs to be some fun and some passion in aviation. And that's what it was when I grew up in it. I learned to fly at a small FBO in Manhattan, Kansas.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this was the way it worked. And what I've tried to do with Leighnor Aircraft is try to recreate some of that passion, fun, and interest in aviation. Now, we are teaching pilots to the practical test standards just like everybody else. None of us here want to have the wild bills of the sky up there because, sad to say, there are those people that are an accident waiting to happen. And none of us here want to fly with them or inhabit the same sky that they inhabit because, unfortunately, sometimes they will take you with them. So we want to teach people professionally, but we also don't want to forget there's a lot of fun in this field and there's a lot of passion.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this, particularly here in the Prescott and north central Arizona area, there is just nothing short of absolute beauty anywhere you go when you're up in a small airplane.
It's gorgeous around here. Absolutely. Like you said, it's quick to get to the Grand Canyon. It's quick to, get to a lot of the different sceneries around here.
Yeah. For example, Sedona is probably 20-25 minutes away from Prescott here in a small airplane. Grand Canyon, depending on the plane, is a little over an hour.
Okay.
And so you can go through the corridors of the canyon, and trust me, the canyon looks a whole lot different, flying over it at 3,000 foot above the canyon instead of 35,000 feet above the canyon. Very, very different experience.
I bet. And that's something that I definitely have to do one day because, it's all on our bucket list, and so if you're just a regular person, how do you, there's a lot of companies that say, hey, you can take a trip with us, you can do a tour with us. Would you recommend, is that how we go about it?
No, I don't. An air tour is an air tour. You will see amazing sights, but it's not, if you're wanting to be a pilot, if you're wanting to fly yourself, then what you need to do is take a discovery flight. Those are basically like a little mini flying lessons. We're gonna put you in the left seat of the airplane. You're gonna have the controls after we get clear of the Prescott Airport, and the instructor will go through how the controls work and move the airplane in the air, and you'll be able to do as much or as little as you want. You'll also see some pretty cool scenery, too, while you're up there.
So it's called a discovery flight.
Absolutely, a discovery flight. And for roughly $180 to $280, depending on the size of the airplane, you can, go up for an hour and see if it's for you.
That's amazing. So do you guys do that here?
We certainly do, both here and Cottonwood.
Gotcha. So there's multiple locations.
Yes, we have a satellite self-service location that has a smaller number of aircraft over at the Cottonwood Airport that serves the Verde Valley. And of course, if you're listening to us over in Cottonwood, as you know, you take off out of the airport over there, you're basically at the Red Rocks as you get out of the airport area.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't even have to do a scenic air tour over there. It's like, just take off. You've done it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lance, let us know a little bit more information about you, like your website, your phone number. How do people contact you guys? And especially, I'm all excited about the Discovery flight.
Okay, our website is www.leighnor.com, and that is Leighnor, Leighnor, aircraft.com. And there is a great deal of information on that website about what we do, how much it costs. We're very transparent here about what we rent our aircraft for and what the approximate cost of learning to fly is. And for those just wanting to know a ballpark, for probably around $9,000 to $10,000, you can get your private pilot license here.
Okay.
Of course, there's a lot of variance in that because a lot of it depends on you as the student, how well you pick things up. And I'm sitting here as an old flight instructor, and I'm just going to say there's always something that a flight student will struggle with. I had my own share of things back when I was, 18, 19 when I got my license that I struggled with. And every student, it seems, has one of those things.
What are some of the things they struggle with?
Sometimes it can be air maneuvers. Sometimes it can be talking on the radio. Because communication is important in flying, particularly in a controlled airspace such as Prescott. And when I say a controlled airspace, what that means is that within a certain radius of the airport, you're under direct control of FAA air traffic control.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you basically have to follow their directions pretty much to the letter. So being able to communicate easily and clearly and succinctly on the radio is very important. Some people struggle with that. Air maneuvers sometimes become difficult. As everybody listening probably knows, we get a few winds up here at Prescott.
Absolutely.
One of the maneuvers that you're required to learn to get your private pilot, and this was my own personal struggle back when I got mine, and I learned to fly in the Midwest, and it's windy there too, almost all the time, is a maneuver called turns around a point. And what that is you pick out a point on the ground and you basically circle the airplane around that point. The trick is you've got to keep the airplane in equidistance from that point on the ground. And if you have a 30-mile-an-hour wind blowing from a specific direction, you've got to compensate continuously as you go around that point. I spent a lot of hours doing circles in the sky when I was 18 and 19 because that was my own personal struggle. Sometimes it's the more advanced computer systems now that we have.
Yeah.
Our flight planning, or it could be any combination of those things. We do throw a great deal of information and learning at private pilot students. It's not like driving a car.
Oh, definitely not. And then even when you were saying the communication fact of everything, I got to ask you on a communication point, is there like certain pilot talk? Like truckers have, 10-4 over and out or, whatever. They
Absolutely.
So what's some jargon for?
Oh, for example, when we're getting ready to take off, and let's say we're sitting at the number one position at the end of the runway out here, we've got to make a call that goes something like this. Prescott Tower, Cessna 249 Kilo, holding short, runway 21 left, number 1.
Wow. Okay. So what does that mean? And what, honestly, because you just said like you were at the 1. So when I'm in a plane and I'm seeing this like leave, there's numbers around it. What does all that mean?
Well, when I say the number that I said, 249 Kilo, is the registration number.
Okay.
That is how the airplane is identified, and there is actually radar transponders that echo that number. So when ATC's radar paints your airplane to the air traffic controllers, they will see in 249 Kilo on their radar or traffic control systems. So that identifies the airplane. When we say 21 left, that 21 is the compass direction.
Okay.
So that is 210 degrees. Left is Prescott has parallel runways, left and right. We're on the left-hand runway, and when I said number 1, we're the first airplane waiting to take off at 21 left.
Got it. So there's absolutely.
Yes, you have your jargon, and the real key point is Prescott here is a very busy airport. It routinely ranks 40th in the 40s in the busiest airport in the country.
Wow, Prescott.
Yeah, Little Prescott actually sits usually between Oakland and Portland International in numbers of flight operations.
Holy cow.
That's how busy we are here. And with the flight training that has continually picked up over time, everybody ourselves, Embry-Riddle, North Air, every flight school in the field has gotten busier and busier and busier as this pilot shortage has deepened. And people are turning to aviation as a career. In many cases, many of these organizations, I mean, you're struggling to keep up with the demand because there are so many people wanting to learn to fly. That's particularly acute over at Embry-Riddle. We're okay, but there are definitely times that we get busy, and it can be a challenge.
So, Lance, people are looking at aviation as a career. What does a typical, what does somebody make in aviation?
It has been changing so fast. I am almost not the right person to ask that question. It used to be, and this is part of the reason we're in this shortage, is that the pilots that flew the little regional jets or regional turboprops, like what flies out of Prescott with SkyWest, didn't get paid very well.
Got it.
I mean, depending upon your community, you could almost make better at Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's than flying an airplane, but it was the path to a better position and more money. That has gone up considerably. And I would be remiss in trying to throw a swag figure at it here because, quite honestly, I don't know. I do know it has gone up significantly.
And it's pretty competitive.
Yeah, there's a shortage. Great. When there's a shortage of anything, price goes up.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Lance. Any other final words you'd like to say?
Well, all I'd like to say is come by and visit us. We'd be happy to show you around, show you airplanes, show you our simulator. We're at 6418 McCurdy Drive at the Prescott Airport. We're open 8 to 8 during the summer, 8 to 6 during the winter. Our phone number is 928-499-3080, and we're happy to help. Our whole reason for being here is to get people in the air and make private pilots. And even more importantly, and one of the things I should have touched on earlier, one of the things we've seen a lot of here is pilots that have been out of aviation for a while deciding to get back in. And it's one of those things that once you've been a pilot and been up there, it's almost impossible to get rid of the bug. I mean, it's worse than COVID.
Oh, wow.
And once you've experienced it, it does change your life, and that's a warning as well. It does change your life, and you're going to want to experience it because it's a sense of freedom, and just the view from the air is so totally different than it is at 35, 40,000 feet in essentially a big bus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited to want to try it. You're talking about your discovery ones. I definitely want to do that. I'm so excited. I'm so glad to have found you and so glad to have learned about you.
Well, thank you, Lorette. It's been my pleasure sharing with you and our audience here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lance. I really appreciate it. Leighnor Aircraft with Lance Leighnor.
Thank you, Lorette.